They'll see somebody with over 3 million subscribers, they'll see a shape or a figure that they desire, and they'll want to do what she does for the sake of achieving a similar result to what Daisy has achieved. At the end of the day, the only person who looks like Daisy is Daisy. The only person who has Daisy's shape is Daisy. So this is a video I was actually meant to do last week, but then last week's video replaced this video that week, so that video is now last week and this video is now today. It's an interesting one because a few of you may have actually stumbled across the channel due to the individual I'm actually going to be discussing today. I think it was either March or April last year where I released a video on Daisy Keech and kind of spoke about how a lot of her exercise choices is pretty poor in the grand scheme of things, and I wasn't particularly impressed with how she structured workouts, especially for her target audience. And that video did actually quite well in the algorithm, and that actually led to the kind of like the regrowth of TFNL as a channel. Hello, here we are today. And obviously I expressed some opinions people didn't agree with. Completely fair, completely valid, and some opinions people did agree with. But today we're going to be discussing something which seems to be a bit of a running theme with Daisy. And obviously the workout we're looking at today is an hourglass abs workout, 8 minutes. Repeat this to clinch your waist. Key there. But before we do so, the bits and bobs that must be done, must be done. If at any point throughout this entire video you decide you like the video, then please let me know you like the video by liking the video. And if you haven't already, please do consider clicking the red button down below, that's probably not red anymore, to subscribe to the channel. Maybe even the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. And if you have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, then please do consider drop it down below in the comment section for comment question of the week, and I shall do so. The headpiece this week is a lot better than last week. Last week was a bit anticlimactic. This week has tinsel and things on it.
An hourglass shape is something that I have worked really hard for, and my exercises are very specific to where I do not work my outer oblique. I will not do any of that because, at least in my experience, it's always built my waist outwards.
That is somewhat valid in the sense that building your obliques and developing your obliques through oblique-specific movements that very much encourage hypertrophy, like Russian twists with like cables and things along those lines, may actually give the illusion of a thicker waist. I'm not necessarily saying it will make your waist thicker, but it may give the illusion of a thicker waist, which is why a lot of bodybuilders actually don't train their obliques, because they want the illusion of like a narrow waist. And personally, again, I also don't train my obliques directly, so I'll give Daisy that. That's a fair point. You can train the obliques outside of just the realm of hypertrophy. One of the primary functions of the obliques is going to be rotation, anti-rotation. So if you're like mixed grip deadlifting, oftentimes that may lead to a bit of rotation. So you would do something like a pull-off press or like another anti-rotational movement to help combat that rotation that you might be experiencing through the anti-rotation function of the obliques. They can be trained for purpose and function rather than just appearance and muscular development. So obviously immediately with the title, you know it what's occurring. An hourglass abs workout, 8 minutes. Repeat this to clinch your waist. A workout will not change the shape of your body. That's very much genetic. That could be due to like your muscle bellies. That could be due to the amount of muscle you have, in fairness. That could be due to your body fat percentage. So many things. But the workout alone will not ultimately change your shape or give you that hourglass figure. Again, that largely is going to be genetic, as you may be predisposed to certain shapes. And no, it won't clinch your waist. That almost like implies that doing this will like spot reduce fat around the waist area, which we know it won't do. The issue I always had with a lot of Daisy's ab-dominant workouts is a lot of them were more hip flexor than abdominal. And this is a prime example. Obviously, the leg kick, you're probably going to feel a lot of burning around this bottom area here. That's because your hip flexors are very much responsible for what's occurring. When we're looking at like training the abs specifically, we think about the six-pack muscle, and that actually often refers to the rectus abdominis, which again is this sheet of muscle over the stomach here. Although that is one muscle, so you can't train the upper or lower abs, that doesn't exist. Despite what magazines used to tell you, you cannot do it. You can arguably, in theory, place more emphasis on upper ab versus lower ab fibers based on how you choose to perform a movement. So for example, in this case, this, like I said, very hip flexor dominant. If you were to crunch up and bring that sternum to the pelvis, that may place a bit more emphasis on the upper ab fibers. If you were to reverse crunch and bring that pelvis to that sternum, that may place a bit more emphasis on the lower ab fibers. When it comes to training the abdominal region for hypertrophy, like building the muscle, as you are very much able to, because surprisingly, despite what influencers may tell you, the abs are just like any other muscle. If you want them to grow and want them to develop, you should train them like any other muscle. That means going through adequate ranges of motion, incorporating progressive overload, resistance, etc., etc. Again, very much a hip flexor dominant movement. Arguably, I would say an easier easier variation of the movement we've just done. Obviously, if you're going to keep the workout the same, that's fair enough. You know, you've got to do what's best for you. I would avoid doing two of the very similar movements back to back. So for example, you've gone from hip flexor with the flutter kicks to hip flexor with the single leg raise. Again, I typically avoid doing that personally. It's too close together to the muscle you've just worked, and you're not changing the position in which you're working the movement. You're only really changing the range of motion. I would maybe just throw this down later down the line if you're going to do it. The same kind of applies here. Again, this is going to be very hip flexor dominant. Already we have the first three movements. I'm not saying they're only going to work the hip flexors. I'm just saying they're going to be very hip flexor dominant, which isn't really aligning with the kind of hourglass ab workout title, because you would expect to see a lot more crunch variations, especially this early on. That being said, you can train the abs outside of just the realm of hypertrophy. Similar to the obliques, you can train them for other functions as well, and arguably for a lot of other muscles too. Plank variations and whatnot may not be the best for building the abs because they don't go through an adequate range of motion against resistance. They may be better for the stability side of things, maybe strengthening to an extent, depending on how you define strengthening the abs. So many things, like you have options with ab training. It doesn't just need to be crunch. That is very much dependent on what you're trying to achieve from ab training. So this is now a bit more ab specific. You see how we're bringing the pelvis up and it's now reducing the distance between the pelvis and the sternum. We're doing a bit of a reverse crunch. That's going to bring a lot more of the abdominal region actually into the mix now, which is probably what you want to see when you're doing an ab focused workout. Even with these jackknives, you're getting some reduction in range of motion. You see we're crunching slightly and kind of bringing the sternum a bit closer to the pelvis. It's not massive, but there is some reduction in range of motion because obviously the upper back is also lifting off the mat. I know a lot of times when we do movements you think flat back and neutral spine. With the abs it's a bit different. We actually want to roll that spine and have a bent back almost, because essentially we're trying to think about spinal flexion, and you almost want to imagine you're peeling your spine off the mat one vertebrae at a time, rolling and really crunching and bending over with it. That's really going to reduce the distance between the sternum and the pelvis, which is obviously going to lead to going through an adequate and appropriate range of motion for the abs. This movement will incorporate the obliques to some extent, probably not as much as you think, due to some rotation. Obviously, like I said, one of the primary functions of the obliques here is going to be that rotational movement, and this is kind of what's occurring here with the elbow coming across. The other thing the obliques also do is like side bending, so they help you bend to the side. So you see people do side bend variations. Again, that's going to be quite an oblique dominant movement, so you do typically want to avoid rotation based movements and side bend based movements if you're trying to avoid working the obliques. And again, the same here. Obviously you're going to get some abdominal recruitment here because you're holding this position, and also some hip flexor too by holding these legs up, but this is very much a rotation based movement. So obviously Daisy spoke about how she doesn't want to train the obliques. The obliques are split into external obliques and internal obliques. Doing these movements where she is rotating is very much working the obliques, so it kind of does somewhat contradict what she was stating earlier. And then we've got some basic crunches, which to me is probably one of my favourite movements we've seen throughout this entire workout. I mean, if we just stuck to the basic crunch and the reverse crunch, although quite boring and quite anticlimactic, it would actually probably be not a bad workout, especially if you added a bit of resistance to it. So the big thing here, like I said earlier, remember, imagine you're trying to peel your back off the mat, but really crunch it up. You don't need to go the whole way. We just want to kind of crunch up and roll that spine, and that's largely the workout. And this very much does align with what I said about Daisy back in the day, in the sense that I appreciate that Daisy gets people active. I do love to see that. Based on the comment section, it's fair to assume that a lot of Daisy's audience might be quite young, and they're going to be very impressionable. They'll see somebody with over 3 million subscribers, they'll see a shape or a figure that they desire, and they'll want to do what she does for the sake of achieving a similar result to what Daisy has achieved. But at the end of the day, the only person who looks like Daisy is Daisy. The only person who has Daisy's shape is Daisy. You have your shape. It may be similar to Daisy's, it may be wildly different from Daisy's, but at the end of the day, your shape is your shape, and it's about working with what you've got and making the best of what you've got, because that doesn't imply your shape is worse or better than Daisy's. It's simply just not Daisy's. It's different. And the thing is, obviously this video has done bits in the algorithm. It's got over 5 million views. That's over 5 million people that Daisy has now obviously appealed to, and 5 million people may think that this workout is going to be very effective for the abs, which unfortunately, although it is effective to an extent, it may not be as effective as you might think, and it's also going to give an hourglass shape, which again, we know it's not. I think it very much comes into an element of responsibility where I believe it's Daisy's responsibility to be a bit more transparent with her audience, and to maybe educate her audience a bit better surrounding what they can realistically expect from doing her workouts, to also further enhance the fact that they shouldn't be disheartened if they don't achieve the results they were expecting to achieve. 8 minutes is a good length for a workout, I think. It's a really nice starting point for a lot of people, and also just people, if they're short for time, they may only be able to do 8 minutes, which is fantastic. 8 minutes is better than 0 minutes. I love to see that. But it's also convenient that videos over 8 minutes get double adverts on YouTube, therefore will likely bring in more ad revenue. And then there's a pessimistic side of me that thinks to myself that the video, as a lot of Daisies unfortunately are, it is fairly low effort. It is not very thoroughly planned. The program and the workout itself is a bit, I don't want to say lazy, but it hasn't been well considered. And it's also conveniently over the 8 minute mark. There's an element of me that questions whether this is purely kind of promoted for the sake of getting money, because she will get a fair amount of money from this video. But flip around, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. At the end of the day, this is part of her business and it's part of making money. So I fully respect it. I get money from my videos and it's fantastic when videos do well. But the big thing is, regardless of whether I'm getting money or no money, I still want to promote a good message and educate people and maybe even entertain people occasionally. I think it would be really valuable if somebody with such a large audience such as Daisy just put a bit more effort into the educational side of things, because I think she could really help change the game and really help guide a lot of people in a better direction. But again, that is simply just my opinion. So now we're going to crack on with comment question of the week. This individual asked if I've ever looked into MAPS workouts by the guys at Mind Pump. They were wondering what I thought about their type of training. They've been following the workout program for a while now and they've seen good results. They were thinking whether changing workout phases every 3 weeks is too much, which is what their plan suggests. At the end of the day, if you're experiencing good results from the workout, does it really matter what I think? I may say, oh, I think it's an awful workout, but if you're experiencing results and you're experiencing results you're happy with, is that not the most important thing? If it's helping you achieve what you want to achieve, then that really is a priority. And if it's not broken, don't fix it, because clearly something is working. When it comes to changing phases every 3 weeks, when it comes to programming for hypertrophy and things along those lines, you typically want to milk a program dry. So run it for as long as possible and progress it for as long as possible with little variation. And when you do make changes every, let's say, 8 to 15 weeks perhaps, maybe even more, there will be small changes depending on how you're doing, which exercises you are still responding to, etc, etc. But for other purposes, let's say like martial arts or more athletic purposes in a different sport, then you may actually get benefit from changing it more frequently. You could go through plyometric phases, strength phases, etc, etc. Granted, they probably last longer than 3 weeks, but again, that kind of phased approach to training is very much a thing, and I believe it to be quite effective depending on the goal. So it really does depend on you, your goal, and what you're trying to achieve. That is it. That is the video. Like I said at the start of the video, if you like the video, then please let me know you like the video by liking the video. If you haven't already, please do consider clicking the red button down below to subscribe to the channel, and maybe even the bell next to it so you get notified when I upload every week, twice a week. And if you two have a question you want me to answer at the end of the next video, please do consider drop it down below in the comment section for a comment question of the week, and I shall do so. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating the fact that I thank you for tolerating me, and thank you for tolerating the video.